There's no edge, and that's a problem. Every defense that you call as a defensive coordinator has got to have some sort of contained player, and UCLA keeps jumping inside and allowing the Trojans to get the edge. Jones, 21 carries, 120 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Barlow in the game now. And they'll give it to him. They're going to stretch it outside this time. No game. I tell you, those guys that play back pass, it's Andrew Voorhees, Brent Keelan, Justin Dietz, and Jonah Monheim have been playing some heck of a Trojan football. They sure have. There you see Blaylock. I was talking about that edge. They finally had an edge player. Blaylock comes up, gets the edge, forces the back to be patient, and then he's basically just kind of muddled down for a no-gain run. That's what they need more of. UCLA has got to commit towards those edges. Blake Brown back in, 2nd and 10. At the 34. Caleb Williams sets all day. Williams now takes some throws on the move and loses this one right out of bounds. Intended for follow. Too much hot sauce on that one. Brings up 3rd and 10. He should have run. He should have run. He had all the field in the world. First, he's got great time, great protection right here. Watch as he breaks contain right here. Run the ball. He can pump to the left and then get himself even more space. No reason to just chuck that ball that hard at this tight end. Now presents a big 3rd down opportunity for this defense. They've got to get pressure. They've got to keep him contained in the pocket. If he gets loose, he's dangerous. 3rd down and 10 at the 34. Addison has been his target in these situations. Williams backing up. Power, take it down. He took a sack. Got to. And with 2:40 to go, that's a loss of 12. Trojans will have to punt it. He's got nowhere to go. I've been talking about it all night. You got to rush discipline in your lane. Because they just push the pocket right into his lap. He's got to break contain and get himself going. 1-2, that's his best rush tonight. Wasn't overly dominant, just walked the tackle right back into Caleb Williams' lap. And because of that, there was nowhere to escape. 2-2. Transfer from Washington, 8 sacks on the night. But that was clearly his best play. So that makes it 4th and 22. And this could be USC's first punt.
Okay, everybody, here we go. Oh, man. So college football is always fun. It's always exciting. It's always entertaining. It came really, really close to being cataclysmic today. The college football universe, the playoff system, all of it, everything that we expected. We almost had one of those days. But TCU survived. Michigan survived. Ohio State survived. But we have still had a shakeup elsewhere. We will get to that. And of course, USC and UCLA are on the field 48-45. And you talk about entertaining. This has been a aerial circus. Great performances by Caleb Williams on one hand, of course, in any measurable way. Also, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, if you've watched the game, not looked at the box score, but watched the game and his gutty performance. Great stuff out of USC and UCLA tonight. Oregon and Utah just getting started. They're somewhere in the second quarter at 7-3 Ducks. Bo Nix is playing well for the most part. And what a day. And the SEC with 3 college football playoff contenders. Oh, two, and probably just 1 for the SEC. So it opens it up for maybe the ACC, maybe the Pac-12 winner. And again, USC is punting for the first time on this night. UCLA gets it back. Dorian Thompson-Robinson down 3. All right. We'll check out your comments and questions, of course, in the live chat. And let's get to the calls right now as we take in the final 2 minutes of USC and UCLA. Oregon, Utah also going at it. We got the real MVP on the line to kick us off.
Hey, Mark. How are you doing this fine Saturday evening?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. I like
Good.
that the background matches the color of my logo. It's a nice little touch.
Yeah, we just noticed that people have been playing around, and so that's going away. So cherish it for all of about 5 seconds.
Oh well, I would consider it a Thanksgiving type of thing. But
Yeah, not big into oranges and browns. The
oh
colors here at the Voice of College Football are red, black, and silver. So there
you
we
know
go.
what? The color orange. One of their big teams lost today. Speaking of that, Tennessee, man.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, Tennessee's got a bad defense. That it's college football. Again, we shouldn't discard or discount any of these occurrences happening.
I know that, Mark, but the fashion in which they lost surprised me.
Sure. Yeah, Tennessee's roster, though, is not that much better than South Carolina's. They've played much better. The two quarterbacks have had much different seasons, but are their playing abilities much different? Yeah, this is college football, and this is why it just drives me crazy to hear people comment when all of a sudden there's one result. That team's trash, or they're awesome, or these extremes all over the place from these people that it's like, how long have you been watching college football, people? It's like, I just, have you been watching for 3 weeks? Oh, you've been watching for 10 years? Then, learn that, yes, there are elite programs that almost are consistently elite all the time and play like that most of the time, but they're going to have a couple letdowns per year. Do they navigate the letdowns and finish off and win games like Michigan and Ohio State did today? Yeah, that's what typically happens. Yeah, they mow everybody else down. Are there really awful teams? Yes. But these other results, I don't know that we should be. South Carolina scored 6 points against Florida last week. Florida lost to Vandy today.
Vandy's a decent team, Mark. I think people need to understand that now. Vandy's decent.
Well,
You know what they are?
decent.
They're Arizona of the East Coast.
Well, let's put it this way. We are making that statement because it's Vandy. If they had the results and we put another name on their team, we would still say they suck.
Okay. But I listen, 5-6 is not horrible.
No, it's not horrible.
I understand they've been 3 non-conference opponents who aren't good, but they've got 2 quality wins. They've
got 2 quality wins.
They're
but
capable.
How many people would be on here saying Michigan State's good or Wisconsin's good, and those teams I would still say are better than Vandy, and they've got similar records or better records.
Well, you know who else should be on that list probably, Mark, is Georgia Tech. Shout out to Georgia Tech beating North Carolina today.
Love it.
So with that result, only one ACC team can make the playoffs now, Mark?
Sure. Yeah.
And let me ask you this. With Vandy's result against Florida, which albeit is hilarious and as nice as a Kentucky fan that some of the Vandy heat is off me, is Texas A&M the worst team in the SEC?
Texas A&M, the worst team in the SEC. They are playing the worst right now. So, yes, I would say if we had to make that call, that Texas A&M is the worst team in the SEC. They've won 1 game in the SEC. Vandy is now up to 2, and they're just playing so much better right now. And at some point in the afternoon, I noticed that Texas A&M was going to the 4th quarter, and they had 13 points. They were beating UMass 13-3 to start the 4th quarter. That's horrible. That speaks volumes. Again, that just confirms what we've seen 10 or 12 times this year is that Texas A&M sucks. They're bad. They're a bad football team.
Yeah, I know that, but UMass, Mark, I mean,
I know they're a bad football team.
Texas that's a level I don't
bad football team.
Arkansas, I'm not sure if you saw, defeated Ole Miss.
Oh, yeah.
Completely dominated them, it looked like, from start to finish.
Yes.
Is that just another case of any given Saturday type thing?
Of course it is. There's not much difference between the Ole Miss and Arkansas rosters. Again, Ole Miss has had a better season, but KJ Jefferson has been lost for much of the season for Arkansas. They've lost one of the best defensive backs in the nation Jalen Catalan weeks and weeks and weeks ago. Had a lot of injuries. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of separation. Look at LSU and Arkansas last week.
Yeah, I know, you're exactly right. There's a few other teams I'd like to give a shout out because they took care of business or they've done something great. Oregon State beat Arizona State. That's a good win for them. I saw that it was the first time since twice since 1972 they've won at Arizona State.
But that's a good win.
It's not a good win, but it's for them something they normally don't do. So
for them. Yes.
Yeah, for them.
Again, we got to put it into context. Oregon State. Okay.
Yeah, for them.
For them.
It's a good win for them. And that's all it should. It's not. They're not going to make the playoffs, Mark, but for them, it's a decent win.
Oregon State's a good football team too, but I just, I want to keep things in proper perspective. That sometimes we get this feel good about Oregon State, and Oregon State's okay. They're good. They're a top 40 team in the nation. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was a solid win at Arizona State. I'm not saying they're going to beat Bama. I'm just saying that for what they're normally capable of doing, this was a solid win.
Okay. And they beat them more decisively than either USC or UCLA did.
Right.
And Arizona State also beat Washington. I get your point. I didn't mean to jump on you for that one, but okay.
Virginia Tech upset at Liberty today.
Was that technically an upset?
3-8 versus 8-3. Liberty beat Arkansas. So
look that one up.
And Virginia Tech lost to Old Dominion earlier in the year, so I would consider it upset. I don't know who was favored in the actual game, or who the majority of people were going to pick, but I would think it was an upset.
Ooh, it sure was. Liberty was a 10-point favorite. I would have never guessed that. And I'm usually pretty dead on guessing point spreads. Okay.
Iowa, they beat Minnesota. They look like they're taking care of the West.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a shame because Illinois, man, I thought they had it against Michigan for long portions of that game. Hopefully Blake Corum's okay for the Ohio State game.
Yes.
Notre Dame took care of Boston College. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because Notre Dame usually plays to their level of competition, and that did not happen today. So good for them. And I guess the final one, Mark, is USC, because it looks like they're going to beat UCLA and be an outside playoff contender?
Yeah, I don't know what happened here at the end because USC punted with about 3 minutes left, up 3. So they obviously stopped UCLA. So these two teams actually found a defense in the last 3 minutes of the game suddenly. And obviously UCLA got stopped. And yes, Caleb Williams had 502 yards tonight, rushing and passing. Wow. All right. 48-45, USC marches on 10-1. They will go to the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, I think early projection, I think they jump LSU this week.
Yeah, that could be. Let's see. Last week, were they 7 and LSU 6?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, they probably will. I could see that.
Well, Mark, that's all I got for you. Kentucky, fortunately, lost today, but
it was respectable.
Yeah, I know. It was kind of frustrating because I think if we didn't make mistakes, I think we could have been more competitive.
And I didn't see much of the game. I only saw a handful of plays, but it was 3-0, 6-0, 9-0, 16-0. I saw the Kentucky drive that led to the touchdown, and then Will Levis. Sometimes I'm a bit perplexed by his not necessarily decision making because they had a fade to the end zone and the 2-point conversion, but he gives the wide receiver no chance to catch the ball. It's a 2-point conversion. It's 4th down. It's a 2-point conversion. It's the same thing. If you throw the ball 10 yards out of bounds, you can't score. So,
yeah, you're right. Kentucky missed the field goal in the game. They had an interception. Georgia picked off Kentucky in the end zone. So if those things went Kentucky's way, it would have been a much closer game. I was impressed with the way Kentucky was able to move the ball on Georgia. Like, it wasn't like on the stat sheet, it wasn't a lot of yards, but Kentucky had probably 2 or 3 plays of 30-plus yards. And against Georgia, that's just something that doesn't normally happen.
Sure.
But, Mark, there are no moral victories. There's only wins and losses. And unfortunately, it looks like Kentucky's probably going to go to the Las Vegas Bowl or the Texas Bowl and play an Oregon State, a Baylor, or something like that. So just is what it is.
Well, we're looking for that Pac-12 Kentucky matchup is what we want.
Yeah, I know. I want it to be Oregon State because I know the Oregon State guy wants it super bad.
Yeah.
And I personally think it'd be funny if Kentucky, since I'm apparently a Pac-12 fan, would just come along and beat the 5th or 6th best team, and even though Kentucky's the 8th or 9th best SEC team.
Yeah.
Just the continued dominance of the SEC.
And that's what it's going to be. And that's unfortunate because, yes, the SEC and the Big Ten to a certain extent always have to play up to the other seeds in the other conferences. That's just the way it is.
Well, maybe not this year because it seems like only one SEC team's going to make the playoffs now.
Yeah, but they'll get plucked up into the New Year's Six.
Oh, that's true. That is true. You got Tennessee. It's going to be interesting with Tennessee's ranking. I'm very interested to see what they do because LSU's behind them immediately, and they just beat them. And Tennessee beat them significantly.
Yeah, that is a difficult call because they got pummeled tonight, but you can't just overreact to one result.
Yeah.
So the Tennessee resume is still phenomenal. So I don't know that I'm going to drop them too far. Based on their performance, it seems like they should be dropped 10 spots, but it's still a season to be evaluated.
You're exactly right. Hit the like and subscribe button, people, and see you next time, Mark.
Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate it. All right, folks, welcome into the Voice of College Football. This is our post-game show that we do each and every week after all the big games. This is every prime time window on Saturday night, and we want to direct folks that want to catch USC-UCLA coverage on over to the USC channel. We got Tim, Tony, and Rick all fired up and ready to go, and they will provide USC post-game. So over on the USC channel, you can get your USC fix. Mike's online. Mike, how you doing today?
Hanging in there. How you doing?
I am doing just fine. What you got for us?
Oh man, just a wild day in football.
It's a close call for you.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a struggle because at least now people know who our 4th and 5th string running backs are.
I saw that. Yeah, you got Gash, and you got, of course, we've seen Stokes before, and we got to see them all play. Yep.
Yep. Gash is our 4th, and Dunlap is our 5th.
Dunlap.
I guess something happened to Stokes because I saw him kind of early on in the second half, and then he went out.
Well, he got drilled. I don't know if that had to do with him leaving the game, but there was one run he had to the left sideline that the Illinois cornerback who's up for the Thorpe Award, Witherspoon,
he's legit.
Nowhere.
Yeah, they were. This is the first game I've seen in a long time where a team was just as physical as we were.
That's a good point.
And I'm just happy that this Tennessee business is over with because I am getting tired of seeing all these mediocre quarterbacks look like Heisman candidates. I mean, can anybody argue that Anthony Richardson from Florida is not a good quarterback?
He's a great athlete, not a good quarterback.
He looked like it against Tennessee.
Yeah.
Anyone want to stick up for the former USC quarterback that went over to the new USC?
You mean Oklahoma? Spencer Rattler?
Yeah, Rattler. Yeah.
Okay, the condition with him would be that he has had some really good seasons, especially in 2020. He has the potential to be. He will play in the NFL. He will have a roster spot in the NFL. I don't know if he's going to be able to hone his skills, but he has an NFL skill set. Is he a good quarterback? Has he been a good quarterback this year? No.
He looked like it today, though. He looked brilliant today. What, 6 touchdowns?
Yes, he was on fire.
He was like 30 of 37, 38.
On fire.
So, I mean, you get all these quarterbacks. I'm trying to think. I mean, I wish Darrell was here. He could tell me what did Levis look like. Or was Levis healthy when they played Tennessee?
Will Levis, I wouldn't call him healthy. He played. They only scored 6 points. So Tennessee's defense took care of business that particular night.
So they had one good outing.
Yeah.
And I guess I feel better that, you know, we weren't the only ones that struggle. I mean, you could sit there and, you know, I will say that injuries did, you know, and I think it was in the first half of the Maryland game. I think Ohio State had 28 rushing yards.
Sounds about right.
I mean, I don't know how. I mean, I know that that Dallin guy, he had a pretty decent game, but Ohio State's running game is going to have to get a lot better, or else I don't see them doing much against us.
Well, they only have 6 days to get better. I don't know that they're going to get much better. I think they are what they are.
And I assume Mayan Williams is going to be healthy enough to play, right?
I'm guessing that his injury is similar to Mike Morris with Michigan, who said, hey, I got a sprained ankle, but if I had to play, I would play, but I'm saving myself for next week.
Yeah. You know, best wishes out there to Corum. I mean, it looks like he'll be able to play because he actually played a couple snaps in the second half after his injury. So,
well, you can interpret that a couple different ways. That he got back out there. We saw him at halftime, you know, taking cuts and running around and loosening up, and then riding the bike, and then he went out there for a few plays. So I thought, okay, this is a close game. They've decided he must be okay. He's going to play, and then he's out. So I don't know if that's a good sign or not, that maybe he tested it and actually, it's one thing to jog around the sidelines and juke a few times and kind of test it. It's another thing to obviously get out there with the bullets firing.
Yeah, it looked like he was doing some like shadow cutting on the sideline, but I'm glad he went up because I came on during the halftime saying, Harbaugh, please don't put him back in. Now this was before I thought that Illinois was going to give us an absolute scare, but this was also when I thought, you know, we were going to see more of Stokes until he went out. Because I mean, Stokes is, you know, he's a viable third option, but Gash and Dunlap just can't do it for us.
Yeah, Stokes 11 carries, 36 yards. Gash did catch a key pass on a 4th down. I was surprised that he had dropped a pass before that they relied on him for a huge 4th down conversion.
Yeah, he had a drop, but he did have that one convert. But I will say this, for all the people that are kind of crapping on McCarthy, his receivers are not doing him any favors.
True.
You know, Cornelius Johnson has looked mediocre all season. Andrew Anthony, he dropped that high point ball that made me mad.
I don't even know if that was a high point ball. The ball was headed right toward his forehead.
I think
the one where JJ thought that there was a neutral zone violation.
Yeah,
that one,
which there was.
That was a great throw.
Yeah, JJ. I mean, he had a couple overthrows. He overthrew Loveland once or twice, and I didn't like that. But you know, he's not exactly playing, you know, like this horrible quarterback. His receivers are letting him down, and I just feel a need to stick up for the guy because this passing problem we have is not all his fault.
No, it's not his fault. He's missing his 2 top tight ends, so we'll see if Luke Schoonover's ready to play next week as well.
Yeah, I was told that he was kind of a game time decision, that he probably could have played if needs be. And I think there was a lot of intentional rest because, I mean, worst case, even if we lost this Illinois, there's nothing we can't do. Even if we lost Illinois, we could still win the game. We could still go to Indianapolis. We still could go with the playoffs.
Sorry, blank name. Yeah, Schoonmaker. I know the player well. I've watched him play a ton of times. That was a little typo of the mouth, but thank you for the correction. Yeah.
And I guess I'm looking at it this way. I'm kind of hoping that Carolina kind of carries this momentum, because if Clemson trips up, there's an excellent chance that even the loser of the game still makes the playoffs.
That was my thought as that Tennessee game was unfolding, and I thought South Carolina turns around and plays Clemson next week. Now let's not anticipate them duplicating that performance, but still, they're capable.
Oh,
And
definitely.
so they play Clemson, they knock them off. They've knocked out the entire conference because North Carolina, of course, blew it tonight. And yeah, then you're looking at a situation where, okay, Georgia most likely is going to beat LSU. And there's one team from the SEC, and that's it for the SEC. You SEC lovers probably getting one team.
Yep.
And then, yeah, look at that. There's still 3 spots.
Yep. And I think USC showed me that they're not going to win out. I think they got lucky. DTR threw 3 picks, especially that crucial last one. I don't. And the only
is that what happened at the end of the game? I didn't see.
Yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson threw a pick to end the game, and he had 3 in the game. So I don't think that's going to happen. Well, Drew Pine's not going to even throw enough passes to get 3 interceptions against USC.
No, not if they can help it.
And as of right now, what would it be like? The winner of the Utah-Oregon game is probably going to be the team they play.
Yeah, that was UCLA's 3rd loss in the conference. They're done. So Oregon has 1 loss and Utah has 1 loss in the conference. So, yeah, this is a semifinal game, basically. Both of these games tonight.
And Utah already beat them by hook or crook, so that'll be interesting.
Now, if Oregon would lose next week to Oregon State, let's say they won tonight, they would still have 2 losses, and they would have a tiebreaker over both UCLA and Utah. So, yeah, this game should do it.
Now, the Civil War is in Corvallis this year, right?
I can't answer that. I don't know for sure.
Too bad Connor's not here. He could tell us.
He could, or the internet could tell us. So we'll find that out.
So I want to say it's in Corvallis this year.
Yes, it is.
Pacific Beaver says, yeah.
Yes, it is.
So I guess, USC opponent is still kind of unknown, because, I don't think the Civil War is a gimme for either team.
Well, no, here's the deal, Mike, unless somebody correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it seems pretty clear. Oregon and Utah both have 1 loss in the Pac-12. Oregon's winning this game by 11 points right now, and they are threatening. So game's far from over, but Oregon obviously is winning right now. If Oregon wins, even if they lose next week against Oregon State, their 2 losses trump UCLA and Utah because they beat them both head-to-head.
So that would be
Oregon's still going to be in the Pac-12 championship game.
USC Oregon. That might be interesting. It's going to be another one of these games where, first one to 60 wins, or at least 50. Boy, is there any? So I guess what? Oregon State's the only team in the pack that plays even a shred of defense.
Well, it depends who they're playing. When they're playing, they did play a good defensive game against USC, but they got trounced by. I will answer that question next week. If they legitimately have a good defense, I think they have a reasonably good defense.
Wasn't USC I won like 17-16 or 17-14,
17-14, like yep. But Utah trounced them with 42 points. But yeah, Oregon State's got a pretty good defense. Yeah.
And also, man, Sonny Dykes is just flirting with disaster this season.
He claims that they work on that every Thursday.
Oh, I don't buy that. Yeah, and Les Miles does it too with his horrible clock management, sure.
Well, Mike, the only reason I believe him is that who in the world does that with no timeouts?
I think he just, like I said, I think he just pulled a Les Miles. I think he just kind of spit in the wind, and hopefully it didn't fly back in his face. Because who plans that? You know,
You
I mean,
might
I
be
like to
right.
live dangerously as much as the next person, but that's just risky. I mean,
Well, they did rush out there, line up, and then they did have a good 5 seconds to measure the kick and get set. And it wasn't like it looked like a fire drill, but at the end they did have some time.
I
And
mean,
again, Sonny Dykes claims we practice this every Thursday.
I think if I was a kicker, I'd want the time that, how they do the whole thing where they take the 3 steps back, take the 2 steps over and do this thing. I would kind of would like that luxury if I could help it. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But it seems like most kickers would rather just kind of take their time, breathe, get set, go through their steps, not sit there and, rush on there and like 3, 2, 1 kick.
Yeah, you usually don't want your kicker huffing and puffing from a dead sprint when he's got to kick a game-winning field goal.
And it wasn't like this was a chip shot. It was like about,
No.
41, 42 yarder.
And that might be one of the reasons, though, why they ran it for 5 or 6 yards right before that. And you do notice that the running back cut to the middle of the field. He went wide, and he cut, and he got it straight on.
Yeah, it looked like he was centering, but I don't. And now, who's TCU's last game?
Iowa State.
Ugh, yeah, I think Tech beat them today, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see that. And now weirder things have happened. Well, I remember, was it back in, was it like 08, back when Oklahoma State was one play away from, they were undefeated, ranked, I think
11. 2011.
2011? Oh, yeah, because,
Yeah.
that was the year the LSU and Alabama. I mean, if they'd have won that game in Ames, they'd have been playing for a national championship instead of Bama.
Yes.
And then they went up to Ames and just laid an egg.
Bama's had a few fortunate occurrences like that.
A few times, yeah. So, and then, so barring that, what team, what was it, Texas? I mean, who would be the rematch in the Big 12 championship?
Kansas State.
Kansas State? That game was pretty close, wasn't
it? Kansas State actually had a 3-score lead, and then their 2 quarterbacks got hurt.
Now, is Martinez out for the year? Or is...
No, I think he's back playing. But even when they went to their backup after Adrian Martinez got hurt, he was playing well, Howard. And they had a 28-10 lead, and then they had to go to the 3rd stringer, and that's when it all collapsed.
Yeah, it just seems like no team in the Big 12 wants to step up. Spencer Sanders looked like horrible this. I think he had like barely over 100 yards and 3 interceptions. He looked like junk against Oklahoma and Bedlam.
Yeah, he's had those games.
Well, like I say, I'm just kind of happy that, everybody survived. We're going to have 11-0 versus 11-0 with, even like I say, even the losers got a chance of making the playoffs. That would make me happy.
They do. Things were aided in that direction, certainly tonight with North Carolina and with Tennessee. The TCU loss would have taken another step. All right, Mike.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here.
All right.
Let's get to these super chats we got here. So Don checking in. We appreciate your super chat contribution, Don. All of J.J. McCarthy's problems are in his head, not his arm. I see what you're saying there. I get it. I also would have to say that he's a fairly inexperienced quarterback, and he's got accuracy issues downfield. I don't know if that's in his head or in his arm. I can't tell. I'm not up there to know. They could be just, there are quarterbacks all over the country that have really good, strong arms that can throw the ball 70 yards. I'm exaggerating slightly, but can throw the ball 60 yards. And that doesn't mean that they have great accuracy. And for J.J. McCarthy, his intermediate shots are pretty accurate. And he threw one downfield, again, to Andrell Anthony, who should have hauled it in. That was perfect. perfectly placed between 3 defenders. But thank you for that, Don. I appreciate it, and you might be right. Don also commented, I apologize, Don, if I can't find this one. There we go. We got first we got Georgia Reload. Thank you for being here, Georgia Reload. Thank you, Gamecocks. Drinks on me. Yeah, I'm sure you Georgia fans are happy to get Tennessee. Get them out of the way. Not that you're afraid of them, but just, you know what? We smacked them around. Why do they get a chance? Gone. And then we got Don coming back with excuses. JJ has not won a football game for us. Has he won a football game? So I would agree with that. If you took any capable quarterback across the nation and they quarterback for Michigan, did Cade McNamara win any games for Michigan last year? So we would say the same thing. No. Cade McNamara played his best game against Michigan State, and Michigan lost that game. That was by far his best game. Did Cade McNamara win a game for Michigan last year? No. All but about 3 quarterbacks in the Big Ten could have played the games that Cade McNamara played last year and won the games for Michigan. I still credit him for being a leader and for making capable throws, 15 TDs, 4 picks, had a nice season, led a team to a Big Ten championship and a playoff berth, but he was not the reason they were there. Okay. All right. And I think that catches us up. We appreciate everybody being here. One thing here, we are going to finish this season strong with your help. So while you are here, and I hope that you enjoy the show, bring others in as well. Let people know that we're here talking college football all the time, every day. And let folks know that we're here. We got Will on the line.
Say it with me, Mark. Vandy, 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 Vandy.
Bandy. Again.
Mark, do you remember 2016 Vandy?
2016 Vandy. Do I remember Vandy in 2016 under Derek Mason? What did they do in 2016? They were like 2-10, 3-9.
Well, you know who they beat at the end of the season, Mark?
They beat Tennessee that year. Oh yeah, Butch Jones. That's the last time. That's the last time that Vandy beat a team that finished ranked. Yes.
So I think it could. I don't think it will happen.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, because remember, Tennessee that year, they had a good start. They beat Georgia and Florida that year, Mark.
Yes.
So they had a really good start, and then kind of down the stretch at the end. That could happen again. They could lose their last 2 again.
As Clark Lee said at SEC Media Days this year, we are building the greatest football program in the country.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, Mark. I think they could be maybe an 8-win team soon. I don't think they're going to be that good. But
I wish we could start the season over.
Yeah. Ooh, I was not expecting that from the Gamecocks. Man.
No.
Spencer Rattler really wasn't looking good this year, and suddenly he looks like a Heisman contender, like in that one game.
Spencer Rattler. He has the ability, but inconsistency. Yeah.
I gotta admit, Mark, I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, but I'm licking my chops at that Alex Grinch defense tonight.
Aren't you, though? Your offensive line is, too.
Oh, yes. Like, they're going to hate me on the US in the chat. The Voice of College Football USC channel will hate me after I call into that after I finish up this.
Get on over there. Give them hell.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Like, I know Caleb Williams is good, but our secondary this year is probably. I'm not going to say it's our best secondary since I started watching Notre Dame, but I think they can. If he threw 1 pick against UCLA, I think he'll throw 3 against Notre Dame. So. Pretty excited.
Yeah, the Irish running on all cylinders. I know Boston College isn't good, but they're not losing to anybody else 44-0.
Yeah. It was snowy in the second half, so the offense trailed off a bit. They would have put up more if it didn't start snowing.
That was one of the reasons why I took BC in the 20.5. I was counting on a weather game, and I thought Notre Dame would just kind of slug out a 23-7 win or something like that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of that Maryland Ohio State game? That was a bit of a strange one. Do you think that Maryland had a good game plan?
Yes.
Or do you think it was really only Ohio State looking ahead?
Well, I can't. I think anyone is foolish that says for sure that they know who looks ahead. I think that's a moronic statement to make. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. That's not what I'm saying. It happens. But I don't think we can tell when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ohio State, I did not see any lack of effort in any way in that game.
Mm-hmm. It was impressive by Mike Loxley, though. Like, I remember a few years ago we were saying this guy doesn't know what he's doing, but this season they're a formidable team.
At times they are, yeah.
But so yeah, I mean they for some reason they don't show up against the Big Ten West, but in some games.
Yeah, well, they had 2 consecutive games where Talia, he comes out red hot in this one and plays lights out, but the last 2 weeks before that he was awful. Their offense was awful. They got shut out by Penn State. They only scored 10 points against Wisconsin.
Yeah. I was pulling for UMass today, Mark. I wanted them to do it. And for a second, I'm like, do they have a shot? Do they have a shot? But
that would have been the ultimate embarrassment. That would have been great.
I mean, it was 20-3, right? That was the score.
I don't know what the final score was. It was 13-3 in the fourth quarter. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is 13-3?
It was 20-3.
20-3.
Man, that would have been if UMass had an average offense, I think they could have made them sweat it out at the end. But they don't. They're UMass. Yes. They're 1-11.
Yeah, this is almost the best example of why, and it just displays how bad Texas A&M is, more so than their losses. This game here,
mm-hmm.
You know, it's 10-3 at half. Let's see.
1-score game.
You know, UMass passed for 55 yards, and I'm thinking that had mostly to do with UMass, not with Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, UMass this year has, you know, they've given up 42 to Tulane. They gave up 55 to Toledo. They gave up 42 to Liberty, 34 to Buffalo. Actually, defense has not been their huge issue as much as offense.
Yeah.
They can't score against anyone. You know, 10, 10, 3, 0, 13, 24-7, 13, 10 against like MAC teams. Yeah, there's Texas A&M right there.
Mm-hmm.
They're a bad football team. You know,
John Brown's got his work cut out.
Yeah.
I cannot believe I was going to win the Big Ten West.
That's phenomenal, isn't it? That's great.
From that South Dakota State performance to now winning the Big Ten West.
Northwestern's done it. They've lost to MAC teams and won the Big Ten West.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just we really got to Big Ten. Is the Big Ten the last one that hasn't gotten rid of divisions yet? The last of the Power Five?
Yes. Since the SEC is starting whenever. I don't know if they announced when that's going to take place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Big Ten says, I believe that they're going to. I just think that they're trying to figure out what to do with USC and UCLA in some kind of scheduling format.
Yeah. Because they got to get rid of divisions. Like, I know no one wants to see Michigan and Ohio State 2 weeks after the game. But we can't have this. We can't have beatdowns during championship weekend.
Yeah, hopefully USC and UCLA would break that up.
Yeah.
we wouldn't have had an Ohio State Michigan rematch that many times in the last, let's say, 10 years. It's just the way things stand right now. We would have it.
Mm-hmm. I wanted North Carolina to win out until the championship game, but that's not going to happen. Then I can't believe they lost to Georgia Tech. That's almost as – I mean, it's not as bad as losing to Stanford, but –
You wanted that why?
To make Notre Dame's schedule look good, so hopefully we could sneak it back our way into a Year 6.
Gotcha. Yeah. And if you look at that from Clemson's standpoint, they, of course, wanted North Carolina to be 11-1. But if you really look at it logically, it shouldn't matter because the credit given for the Georgia Tech win on Clemson's schedule should count just as much as, you're playing, you have two teams that you played. So it really shouldn't matter, but by a perception standpoint, it matters.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, they could still get in. Clemson could. Who do you think is more likely, Clemson or Ohio State, Michigan in a close game loser to get in the playoff?
Clemson.
Yeah.
I think they're going to honor a conference championship, and Clemson's going to have another, an even better win next week against South Carolina. And then the North Carolina win. They're going to rack up 2 quality wins.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to keep the phone line for others, so I'm going to head over to the USC postgame show. But what a great night of college football, Mark.
Yeah. Tell the guys I said hi, and they'll be on into a late night, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. See you, Mark.
Stopping by, Will. All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. And again, if you enjoy what we do here on a regular basis, best discussion, debate, and analysis, that's our aim, goal, and mission. Please don't just enjoy the conversations and the live streams and all the content yourself, but please let folks know out there that you know of, whether that's personally or just on social media, that love college football, know that we are here. All right, we've got Brian on the line. And before we get to Brian, I did want to make note, because I've had the comment up here for a while from Connor Johnson about calling Oregon State a top 40 team. Yes, I called them a top 40 team. I was, you got to understand, Connor, we love Oregon State. We love you being here, of course. Always enjoy the conversations with Connor. But I was somewhat responding to the real MVP calling the win over Arizona State a quality win or a good win. So, got to understand, in context, I was just kind of calming things down a little bit. All right, Brian, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. You?
Doing well.
Man, I'm glad we can end the whole 3 SEC team thing.
Yes, we can.
I don't think it's good for the sport, honestly, but I mean, if they are the 3 best, they are. But anyways, get past that. So yeah, that Michigan game, man, that was something. The whole passing game thing, I don't put it on one aspect. I think the main thing you could point to is just inconsistency all around. Overthrow here when the pass is on time and it's a good throw. The receivers don't catch it. So it's just an all-around issue. And going into that Ohio State game, I mean, I'd feel less confident as a Michigan fan than versus I feel like as an Ohio State fan, even though they played a close game, because I'd be more confident their pass game would show up versus if our run game does get stopped or Corn gets hurt. I'm not confident that our pass game can, show up in a consistent way in the last game of the season when it hasn't all year.
Check the weather forecast. We should have hourly updates on the weather forecast here for the next week.
That's true. I mean, people were talking about the wind today in the Michigan game, but I don't like talking about weather. Both teams play in the weather.
Oh, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It should not be an excuse. I'm just saying it's a reality, though.
True, yeah.
It will affect Ohio State more than Michigan.
That is true. And, Dallin Hayden, man, I don't know I know Henderson's been banged up all year, but that dude falls over like a feather. Like he gets touched and he's down. He doesn't break tackles. I don't know if it's his vision to me isn't the best. I mean, he has breakaway speed, but I just feel like when he gets touched, he just falls right over. Has been showing some flashes, so they might have accidentally just lucked into a good 1-2 punch with him in mind.
Yeah, I like him too. I really like him too, and they probably didn't necessarily trust him until they were forced to, because he is a little thin, a little light. I'm sure he's going to gain weight as he gets older. He's only a freshman, true freshman, but yeah, he's a tough runner, and he certainly wasn't wowed by the moment today, and he had to carry the load, and he ran for 145 yards. And this Maryland defense is not the Maryland defense that we've seen since they joined the Big Ten. They're a much stronger unit than they've been in the past. So not everybody's running for 150 yards against Maryland.
And what do you think about this Ohio State defense, honestly? Because both Michigan and Ohio State haven't really played great offenses. Both of them haven't. But the two teams I would say have decent offenses in the Big Ten, Penn State and Maryland.
Yeah.
I mean, both those teams put up gaudy numbers on Ohio State.
Yeah, they did. They did.
So I just don't know what I guess we just got to wait for the game, because I really don't know how to take that. It's just one of those weird years where like they haven't really played too great of competition.
I do not think that Ohio State's cornerbacks are good coverage guys. I don't think any of them are that good. Denzel Burke has taken a step back this season.
I mean, and Penn State and Maryland, I mean, they got decent push even in the run game. They may not put up like good, huge numbers, but in the Penn State game they averaged 5 yards a carry. I'm not sure what they averaged today, but I mean, those two teams with decent offenses were able to move the ball both running and passing. So I'm curious, but that passing game from Michigan just scares the shit out of me. It's questionable, man. And I don't know if this is a Harbaugh thing. Let me ask you this. Since Rudock in 2015, quarterbacks have regressed. Every start, like Spate starts, right?
Yeah.
He regresses towards the end of the year. 2017 comes around. He's not good at all. He ends up getting hurt, but he wasn't good to start the year. Shea Patterson he was good in the SEC, and he put up decent numbers, but it felt like he regressed. And then Cade McNamara last year, I mean, like you said, he didn't win you any games. Is this a Harbaugh thing with quarterbacks?
Sure looks like it. And it shouldn't be a Harbaugh thing, because he worked with Alex Smith and he worked with Colin Kaepernick, and he was a longtime NFL quarterback. It's certainly a much different game, but the process of developing a quarterback should be pretty similar to what it was years ago. And you're right. When Shea Patterson, and I didn't watch Shea Patterson a lot at Ole Miss because they weren't very good, so they weren't games that I watched start to finish. But when I would watch his highlights, I thought that they got something when they got Shea Patterson. Was he good? He was okay, but he wasn't good enough to win a championship. He wasn't that caliber of a quarterback. Wilton Spate, I don't think there was much to work with there. I never thought that he was that good.
That's true. I guess my point is when they like Wilton Spate, right? That 2016 year, all the way up to that Iowa game. I mean, he was slinging it. Like he was hitting downfield passes, and yes, he hurt his shoulder, but ever since that, he just never was the same. And then even JJ, like I know you were talking about earlier with his deep ball accuracy. That has been a slow regression. Like even last year in spot up duty, I mean, he was on the money with deep throws. The Georgia game, I know it was again mobile duty, but he was on the money with those throws.
The Georgia game, the Wisconsin game.
It's a weird, consistent thing that I've noticed through the years. I don't know if he teaches the quarterbacks, try to be mistake free, and that kind of gives them this sense that they got to that's probably why they overthrow it. I don't know. I honestly don't. But I'm excited for the game. I'm kind of leaning towards. I'm a Michigan fan, but I'm objective, so I kind of am leaning towards Ohio State in that game because they got it at home. I just don't know about that passing game against Ohio State, but I guess we'll see. We'll see if they're holding plays back. I don't know.
I felt better about Michigan winning this game up until today. And now
I
I
did
feel
too.
better about Ohio State winning the game.
That's exactly how I feel, because here's what I hate, man. I understand you want to run the ball, but can we work on the passing game more throughout the year instead of waiting till 2-3 weeks before you play the biggest game of the season? It's just so frustrating.
When you know you have a great running attack and you're beating teams, the Michigan State game, pick any game out of the air that wasn't competitive. Pretty much Michigan took care of everyone, even Penn State. I don't understand why you would continue to hammer Blake Corum over and over and over again. This is free practice, basically. When you're up by 25 points in the fourth quarter on a pretty quality opponent, this is great practice.
Yeah, and you know who does that?
Throw the ball down the field.
Yeah, and you know who does that to perfection? Ohio State. They'll be up 40 points and they'll keep chucking it. And you know what that does? That's why they're so good at passing the ball, because they get so many in-game reps. It's so frustrating because you have a great run game. You know you have a great run game. Why don't you work on the part of the game you know you need to work on? This team could be, if they would have worked on the pass game more, who knows how good this team could be, honestly. And they don't have the running back depth even Ohio State has, because once you get past Corum and Edwards, you get to Stokes and then a walk-on.
Yeah.
Huge drop-off. Versus Ohio State, even when you get past Mayan and Henderson, you got that true freshman stud Hayden, and then even after that they got 4 or 5 stars. It's not the same depth there. Us losing Corum is like if Ohio State lost Stroud in terms of impact.
Yeah. I don't think it's quite there, but I get your point. I think it's close. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's why when they I understand. That's why when they lose their running backs, they're more of a passing team, so it's not as much of an impact. When we lose our running backs, we lean so heavy on the run game. We haven't really worked on the pass game. It's huge.
All right, man. Anything else you got going? We're, of course, going to be here all week, so certainly call back anytime, and we'll talk more about the game or anything else that you've got.
All right. I'm rooting for Notre Dame for the first time ever against USC, man, because in case we do lose Ohio State, hope we get in still. But that's it, man.
There you go. Thanks, Brian. Have a good one. All right, let's address this super chat from Bilal. But before we do that, I am looking at the forecast, and you shouldn't look at forecasts 6 days in advance. But still, I'm just a little bit curious. Columbus weather forecasted for next Saturday would be 41 for a high with rain/snow. Okay. Bilal, super chat contribution coming in. Thank you so much for that, Bilal. We appreciate your contribution, your support, for you being here all the time. Mark, can you please, now we're getting a little personal here, but I read all super chats unless there's like excessive expletives or something that doesn't belong in terms of something egregiously harmful. Mark, can you please take away Michael Hogue's privilege? He timed me out for no reason. You're losing your support and your viewers because of him. All right. Wow. We get a little war of words between Bilal, Michael Hogue. Okay. All right. Let's, for anybody that's got moderator privileges, I will just restate to anyone. And this is a good piece of information to pass on to anyone that is not a moderator, to let you guys know what we tolerate here. So basically, I tell the moderators this. I don't mind people trash talking, trolling, whatever. I don't mind any of that. If people are too sensitive to take that, then that's a problem. What I mind and what we will not tolerate is any personal attacks, on people's whatever. Personal attacks we will not tolerate. We will not tolerate any comments concerning politics, not that I won't allow if somebody throws up one political comment and then it doesn't spark some type of issue from there, and they stop it, they drop it, and nobody else responds, shoot, I'll just leave it alone. But we don't want political debate. We do not want comments made about people's sexual preference or gender or anything like that, or race, of course. All right, so that's basically, those are the ground rules right there. So there you go. All right, next up we got Tide Guy on the line. Tide Guy, how you doing?
Hey, doing great. Now that Tennessee is officially back to the way they always are and flop big time in South Carolina, it's a great day.
A lot of people enjoy that. People outside the SEC, because they didn't want to see extra SEC teams in. And then it seems like people like yourself, as Alabama fans, Georgia fans, whomever, that don't like Tennessee and want to keep them in their place.
Well, I mean, I'll admit I don't like Tennessee just because it's one of our big rivals, but their fans a little obnoxious so far this year, so it's nice to see them kind of get put in place.
Especially when they didn't expect it. I'm sure none of them had any negative thoughts about this game.
No. Another fan base that I get a real kick out of is Michigan. And I'm having some discussion with some Michigan fans who, they're talking about, well, Michigan would beat UCLA by at least 21 points. Well, here's my question. Didn't Michigan have UCLA scheduled this year? And weren't they supposed to go to UCLA, but they backed out of it?
Yes.
So that's a great point.
That doesn't mean that they couldn't beat UCLA by 21 points just because they took them off the schedule.
Right. But I mean, you had your chance to prove you could do it,
sure,
but you took them off and you put a cupcake in like
I don't know why.
Michigan.
I still don't understand why.
Like Hawaii. And here's a question I have for you, Mark. Let's think back to your childhood, right?
Yes. All right.
When it was time for lunch or dinner or supper, whatever you call it, before that, your mom would usually give you a little snack, right? Before dinner. And then when you had dinner, you got what? A big meal. And then when you ate your meal, after the meal, you got what? Dessert?
Dessert.
Okay, so, we got everybody complaining about the SEC. Well, you have your cupcake week 11. Well, my mama taught me you have dessert at the end. We don't put our cupcake at the beginning. We put our cupcake at the end, kind of like your meal.
Yeah, I don't have as much of a problem. Joel Klatt went off on it tonight, and he has every right to, of course. And I understand. I understand the people that have an issue with that, because this is November football, and it should be serious, conference championships on the line, all of that. But I don't necessarily have as much of an issue as other people, because it's more to me about what's the totality of the schedule. If you're scheduling just as many cream puffs as somebody else, they're just distributed in the schedule differently, then they're just distributed differently.
Right, because I was trying to explain, and not with your group, with another group today, we were talking about this, and, I explained to them, I said, if you look at Alabama, since Nick Saban went there,
yeah,
the first game of every year, except for this year, we always played at least a top 10, top 20 team at the worst the very first game on a neutral field.
Generally, yeah.
So
there was a Duke there, there was a Louisville there, but generally, yes.
Right. So, I mean, isn't it more of a disadvantage to start the year against a really good opponent than it is to schedule a cupcake the very first game, so that way you get the warm up? You know what I mean? So my thing is, if you're playing 3 cupcakes, who really cares where you put your cupcakes?
Okay, well, certainly no Michigan fan can say anything to an Alabama fan about scheduling this particular season at all. They can't say anything to anyone. But, of course, I'm reviewing Alabama's schedule here. And besides the Texas game, which is obviously super legit, Utah State, that's actually not a bad scheduling move there by Alabama in regards to a solid Group of 5 program. But then the other 2 games are Louisiana Monroe, and then of course today Austin P.
Yeah. Austin P will make the playoffs in the FCS. It's not a really good school. Louisiana Monroe, we kind of owed them though, Mark, since they beat us the last time we scheduled them in 2007.
That's right.
So that was
That's
a
right.
makeup. Yeah, I mean, I've always been a believer that, honestly, I wish the SEC would go to a 10-game conference schedule. Let's play 10 games, and then everybody play one Power 5 team, and then play one cupcake, and you got it.
Look at Auburn, Penn State. Okay, then the other 3: Mercer, San Jose State, Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, some of the SEC, you got Florida playing Florida State. You got South Carolina playing Clemson, which is a real tough game for them. You got Georgia playing Georgia Tech, who, Georgia Tech's been down, but I mean, at least it's a Power 5. And you got Kentucky playing Louisville, which, that's a decent game every year.
All those games should be played. Absolutely.
Right.
They're rivalries. I have respect for Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina because 9 times out of 10, if not more than that, they not only schedule that one rivalry game, they schedule somebody else.
Right.
Like Georgia, Oregon this year, Florida, Utah, etc. Kentucky hardly ever schedules anybody else. I can't remember the last time they scheduled anybody else in addition to Louisville.
Well, and the problem is a lot of people make fun of the SEC for playing 8 conference games. The problem is you got, who is it? You got Kentucky that always votes against.
Hello, Tide Guy. I think we lost you. You still there? All right. I think we lost Tide Guy. Tide Guy, if you can hear me, call back. All right. Let's move it on to Michael. Michael's team is hanging on by a thread to possibly make it to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. Of course, Purdue needs to defeat an Indiana team in the old Oaken Bucket game next Saturday, an Indiana team that won at Michigan State in overtime today, but even more so, they need Iowa to lose to Nebraska. Michael, how you doing
Mark.
tonight?
I'm all right, but in my opinion, I think that's pretty much all but flatlined.
Uh-oh, we've got another bad connection here.
Hey,
Keep going, Mike. We'll try to stay with you here. Kind of.
If not, I'll try.
Kind of.
All right. No, I think that's pretty much all but flatlined for Purdue. With Iowa winning today.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah, but hey, you never know. Nebraska might wake up. Even though I'm still trying to figure out how they blew that lead against Wisconsin. But anyway, I'm trying to figure out this. How is it?
Okay, Michael. We really can't hear you. So
Hey, let me try.
give us another
I'll
try.
switch over. I'll try again in a minute.
All right, let's move it on to Rob. Rob, welcome to the Voice of College Football. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Mark?
Not too much.
So, it's been a pretty interesting week, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It could have been completely cataclysmic and groundbreaking, but, of course, TCU, Ohio State, and Michigan survived.
So, which loss do you think is more shocking? Tennessee getting blown out by South Carolina or Vandy beating Florida?
Oh, Tennessee.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Yeah. The Vandy, Florida, not that I picked Vandy to win, but they were playing at home after their performance last week, and Florida's been up and down and all over the place. And, I still think Florida's a better team, but that's kind of a 60-40, 65-35 proposition there. So didn't take that one. Now, am I surprised South Carolina won? Yes. Am I more shocked that they won the way they did? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how many spots do you think they're going to slip? I'm thinking they're going to probably drop at least 6 spots.
The thing that the committee has to, and this is what makes rankings difficult at this time of year, is Tennessee suffers that kind of loss to a mediocre team, and so they should drop. but they still have it on, if you're still going to compare their resume and their head-to-head to LSU and Alabama, they should be ranked ahead of those two teams.
That's the thing though about LSU is they just beat UAB pretty soundly. They're probably going to trounce Texas A&M, I would imagine.
Sure.
And then they're going to have the SEC championship game against Georgia, who struggled against Kentucky tonight. So
Yeah.
It's looking better and better every day for LSU to go in there and actually get a win on Georgia. So if they do beat Georgia, I'm not saying they're going to, but it's somewhat likely.
Sure. Georgia's not invincible.
Yeah.
I think they're the best team in the country, but they showed today, and they've shown at other times, they can be beaten.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's funny because before the game today, especially like College Game Day and other people, they were saying that Tennessee would win or would get into the playoff before LSU. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen now if LSU were to go in there and beat Georgia. So with Tennessee slipping up, North Carolina losing hurts Clemson's resume going forward as well. So I think between Clemson and USC, if USC were to beat Notre Dame, which I don't necessarily think they will, I think they've got a better shot to get in the playoffs. What do you think about, between those two teams?
Well, just to address the North Carolina situation and Georgia Tech, I totally get that it helps Clemson from a perception standpoint to be playing the best possible North Carolina team. So they wanted them to be 11-1. That makes total sense. But if you look at it logically, the downgrade of North Carolina's schedule and their results based on them losing to Georgia Tech only lifts Georgia Tech's resume, another team that Clemson beat. So really, if you want to look at it logically, it shouldn't matter who wins between Georgia Tech and North Carolina because it helps and hurts Clemson's resume equally. I know people don't look at it that way, but that's just logic.
Yeah, you've got a point, but I don't know if the committee's going to look at it that way because
I don't know that they are either. I'm just saying that's logical. Yeah,
no, you're right. And then another thing, I had I'm a Notre Dame fan, so this whole season has been like this week for me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You lose to you play a decent game against Ohio State, you lose. Yeah. You trounce Clemson. And then you lose to Marshall and Stanford. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling. I think a lot of that has to do with first-year coaching for Marcus Freeman. But guys like Benjamin Morrison are really stepping up. And who do you think is going to win with Notre Dame and USC, or is it too early for you to?
Well, I'm not making some kind of official prediction right now, but it's such an intriguing matchup because they're such different teams. USC's got arguably the best quarterback in the country, and we saw him tonight on display with 5 receiver deep. They got the 2 studs at the top, and Mario Williams and Jordan Addison, but they go 5 legitimate receivers deep, and the offensive line's really good, and the backs that have had to replace Travis Dye, Jones, and Brown are exceptional backs, not experienced, but exceptional backs. And then the defense is a sieve, and it's really not that good. They've got specific players who are exceptional, but as a total unit, they're not good. And then Notre Dame's the complete antithesis of that. They're a solid team to the core, both lines of scrimmage, more sound, more fundamental, want to play in a phone booth, relatively speaking. Of course they don't, but in comparison. And so the styles are, Notre Dame would be fine with Drew Pine going 11 of 15 for 110 yards passing, just like he has in a number of their key victories, and then run for 250 yards and win the game 23-20.
Yeah. I still think Notre Dame, if they play up to their level, up to where they can play, they should win. But that's the thing. You never know what you're going to get with this Notre Dame team. They could show up and put a beating on USC, or they can get beat down. Well, my last thing is, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that you would have to at least feel good that You would have to at least feel good that Notre Dame has shown up against the best opponents on its schedule.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I don't think anybody saw. I mean, I think a lot of us thought that Notre Dame could beat Clemson, but I don't think any of us really predicted it to be that big of a beatdown. Of course, we didn't predict losing to Stanford either. So
yeah, the Ohio State performance is still a strong one. It's still a solid performance, and then you beat down North Carolina and Clemson, and seem to be playing. Yeah, that Stanford game just kind of came out of nowhere, because outside of that game, the season is gone. It's been an upward trajectory other than that game.
Yeah. And then do we know what's going on with not Notre Dame, Michigan's running back? Is he hurt? Yeah, is Corum, is he hurt? Because he didn't really play much of the second half there.
So either they were holding him out for precautionary reasons, or I think that if you add up what happened, it doesn't look good, because he leaves the game late in the second quarter. Michigan doesn't have control of the game, but they certainly played a better first half than second half. They seem to be the better team in somewhat game control of the game. And he comes out at halftime and he's jogging on the sideline. He's cutting, he's darting, he's testing out his knee, and they put him in the game. And then they take him out immediately. They let him run 3 plays. I don't even know that he carried the ball, but he was out there running around a little bit, and boom, they yank him out of a close game, and he never sees the field again. I don't think that's a really good indication.
Yeah, that's kind of what sucks, because I think if he was healthy, I do think it'd be, a better game next week. But I think if he's out, Ohio State is going to win pretty soundly. I think they need him to win personally. But
well, Ohio State has its own issues running the ball and keeping running backs healthy as well.
Yeah, but their passing game is just so far and away better than Michigan's, and I think you need a good, that's one thing that's hurt Notre Dame over the years is, we haven't really had a good quarterback since Jimmy Clausen, honestly. So it's a passing league a lot of times, not always, but 90% of the time. And so when you don't have a good starting quarterback, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm predicting Ohio State to win. If I had to guess at this moment.
Okay.
But anyways, that's about all I have. So I'll let other people get on there.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me on.
Yeah. Have a good night. All right. Before we bring on Michigan Ben, I will make this comment. I fired up the live stream at halftime of the Michigan game. And of course, Blake Corum was just ushered to the sideline and left the game, was ushered up the tunnel to get checked out. And then Michigan, Illinois went to halftime. I could not believe on here the response of Michigan fans. I'm not talking about 1 or 2. I'm talking about a dozen. They're in the live chat saying, the season's over. I'm not even going to watch the game next week. I can't believe this. We're done. Our season's over. People saying they're not going to watch the game next week. Okay. Hopefully, Michigan Ben is not one of those Michigan fans.
Not at all, Mark. Okay. I am not that guy. Pump the brakes, guys. Pump the brakes.
I know. I couldn't believe it. These people were ready to jump off a bridge.
For one thing, Corum could very well be in that game.
Sure.
He may just, they may wanted to make sure, they may wanted to check him out before, give him a thorough checkout before they risk injuring them, or just risk them, not even just for the Ohio State game, but you don't want to turn a tear into something worse, so that could be one. I think it was precautionary, like you said, and it looked like he was having some pain, so I think Hardball said they that Corum wanted in, but they had to pull him. They wanted to be sure. They kept asking him how he's feeling, but anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Just a quick second here, Ben. So Mark is one of the guys here, Mark Edwards, on the line with us at halftime of the Michigan game. Mark, I'm not talking about you. Not talking about anybody specific. I don't remember anybody's handles that was saying that. I just remember it was like 12 to 14 people that were just, I'm not watching the game next week. Our season's over. We're done. We're toast. We can't win. And I was just shocked by that. I just thought that was ridiculous.
I'm curious how the Ohio State fans were before they had a scare with Maryland. Where I'm sure the trash talk was coming in pretty hard on Michigan having a close game with Illinois until the Maryland scare.
Oh, I tweeted out at some point during the Ohio State game. I said Ohio State fans were laughing at Michigan like 3 hours ago, and now Michigan fans are laughing at Ohio State fans.
Yeah, my wife pointed out they were. She said that they showed something on the television. They were watching the Ohio State fans when we were watching the game. She said I stepped out, and she said, yeah, they were showing the Ohio State fan. They like showed a picture of some Ohio State fans and how they were like laughing and something like that. And then she said the same thing to me. She's like, man, at the end of that Maryland game, she's like, I bet you those Ohio State fans aren't laughing right now. I was like, yeah, that's kind of poetic justice.
It is. It was really close. Now, I'm not going to say it was quite as close as the Michigan game, which obviously came down to the last play of the game.
A long field goal.
And
in the wind.
Although Jalen Moody is phenomenal.
Yeah, Jake Moody.
Jake Moody is phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, he hit I think he hit oh man, I don't know. He hit so many plus 50 yarders this year. It's crazy. Yeah, he's great. It's funny because he beat out Rudock for not Rudock. He beat out I got Rudock now in my head from the whole quarterback conversation, but he beat out
I know
the guy with the mohawk. For some reason I'm blanking on his name.
I am
Quinn Nordine.
My tongue.
Quinn Nordine. Yeah. Yeah. And he beat out Quinn Nordine, which was like her highly recruited kicker. They were both really good, and they had to and Jake Moody's not been his starter as long as he could have been. And he could have, really put up more numbers than he did. And he's already, I think he's got the highest stats for a Michigan kicker right now.
They put up a stat that he's made 37 of 38 field goals under 40 yards.
Wow. That's awesome. I didn't see that. Yeah. Interesting.
Fred BEDLAM made a tactical error in that game. Okay. I get the whole time versus yardage versus timeout equation that if you've got the ball and you've got the lead and there's a certain amount of time left in the game, that you don't risk throwing the ball because it stops the clock if it's an incomplete pass. You make the other team use its timeouts. You run down the clock as much as you possibly can. Then you punt. But you don't do that with 3.5 minutes left in the game. He basically, especially with that win, number one, there's 3.5 minutes left in the game. Number two, Michigan only needs a field goal. Number three, you're deep in your own end. Number four, it was proven multiple times that your punter's not going to kick the ball through the wind very far. Sure enough, they kick the ball. Michigan gets it at the 45. They've only got to go 20 yards to kick a field goal. It was just, and there was way too much time left to be playing like that.
What did you think about the Michigan kicking that last field, the second to last field goal instead of trying to put it in the end zone?
Yeah, that they trusted their defense. I didn't have a huge issue with it. There was a decision to be made there. Okay, it was 4th and 6.
When I looked at it, when I was looking at it though, I was like, to me, it was like so you're kicking the field goal, but you're still in the same position. You still have to stop them and then go and score.
Yeah, but you only need a field goal. So it was, what was it? They were down 17-13. So they would have needed a touchdown to win the game. If they would have gone for it, not gotten it, they still needed to then stop them and then score a touchdown.
Yeah, but they were burying them. They would have buried them at the. It would have been 10 yards difference that way. And
yeah, but you got to score a touchdown versus kick. You've got a field goal right there. You got a kicker who's going to make that kick, and then you're going to get the ball back if you trust your defense. You're going to get the ball back, and your kicker's almost automatic again.
Yeah. Well, that's what but so you're what you're doing is you're trading like, okay, I can actually go ahead here for, if I make this play, I can go ahead here, or I have to score a touchdown and stop them and score a touchdown on the next drive versus a field goal. And that's what you had and they are just not confident in their getting in the end zone. And
I was okay with that.
Which, I understand. They have not, Michigan for one hasn't been good in the red zone all year, and they weren't moving the ball great on but anyways, actually one thing I wanted to talk about, I totally sidetracked thinking about that game. I was wondering about that decision. I was a little nervous when he decided to kick the field goal. I was like, I wanted to see him put it in the end zone. I thought they could have, but hey, it worked out. I'm not going to complain. But what I wanted to talk about was when the other
said it was 4th and 11. If it was 4th and 11, sure. I remembered 4th and 6 for some reason, but 4th and 11, kick the field goal.
Kick the field goal, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention just real quick, the quarterback situation as far as under Harbaugh. I see legitimate reasons for quarterback, so-called regression, even with JJ, because JJ came off a pretty bad shoulder injury.
True.
And he said himself at the beginning of the season, he was having a hard time not overthrowing the ball because he actually strengthened the shoulder a little bit more. So his kind of getting adjusted to the long ball was something that he was having a difficulty with. But I don't think he's I don't think his performance this game was really bad. He had some accuracy issues, but honestly, if you would if he had Ohio State's receiving core, he would have looked a lot better today, because there was a lot of, balls that hit the receiver's hands that they weren't pulling down.
True.
Not even just the one that Anthony, if that would have been any Ohio State starter receiver, that ball would have came down. Almost.
Almost for sure. Yes.
Almost for sure. Those guys,
Ohio State receivers have drop passes too.
Yeah.
But, nowhere close to Michigan receivers. And obviously they're catching a lot more. They have more opportunities to drop more passes, but they don't.
Yeah. He had I know he was a 3rd, 4th string running back. He threw that pass to, but that was right in the hand. The guy dropped it. When then he had the other guy, Gash, drop that one, and then he had the other guy, Loveland, the tight end, was actually wide in the a little bit about 8 yards down the field in the end zone, and he threw it to the guy, kind of probably just because he was on the run and he just wanted to make the sure play, but he dropped. There was a lot of drop passes that kind of went against McCarthy, I think, today. I think he's been shaky the last couple of games. He hasn't been as consistent as he has been, but he did hit some nice down the field passes this game that he hadn't before. Even the one that he threw to the other shoulder of the guy. That could have, if the guy, he could have made that play. I think he was throwing it in a safe spot. If you remember I don't remember, I think it was in the second quarter, there was a play that he had a receiver that was in coverage, and he kind of just threw it to the other shoulder, and that could have been, it was on the money. He just threw it to the other shoulder. I think that was one of those things where he allowed the receiver to adjust, and the receiver just didn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know about regression as far as, even with I didn't think, Shea Patterson, I don't think he was any better for Ole Miss. I didn't think he was that great. I mean, he threw a lot of interceptions for Ole Miss.
Well, the only thing I was considering at that point was that he was playing for Ole Miss, and the talent gap between the teams that he was playing and the defenses that he was playing was pretty sizable. That he had to make up for a lot of deficit there.
Yeah, I mean that's
at Ole Miss. And the only other thing in this Michigan quarterback discussion that we're not bringing up is that why hasn't Harbaugh signed a great quarterback?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that's he got
Rudock. He signed a Dwayne Haskins, a CJ Stroud, a Justin Fields.
That's a different conversation. I mean, and that could be. What do you think? Do you think it's people not wanting to go play at Michigan? Do you think it's people? Do you think it's Harbaugh not picking the right, doing the right? You think it's a recruitment? Well, I mean, obviously it's a recruitment issue. Do you? I mean, I understand. I don't understand that either. I don't understand why guys don't want to play for Harbaugh, considering what he's done for other quarterbacks in the past.
Well, now that's becoming a distant past.
Yeah, that's true. But even Rudock, he took Rudock. Rudock probably would never had a shot at the NFL if he didn't play for Michigan that year.
Yeah. Now, whether that had as much to do with Michigan or had more to do with just Jake Rudock going anywhere, I don't know.
Yeah, and then Wilton Spate wasn't a high touted quarterback, but why didn't we get any? We did. Yeah, I mean, I guess the flop to me was Shea Patterson.
Sure,
that was probably the biggest disappointment, but I didn't ever think he was that great at Ole Miss in the first place.
Yeah, and of course he didn't even come close to playing in the NFL, and even got cut from his whatever they call it. Is that the XFL? Whatever it is.
Yeah. Go.
So that didn't even work out for him. So is that he regressed that much at Michigan, and we can blame Michigan? I would tend to think it's more on Shea Patterson, that he obviously just didn't have it upstairs to turn his He has enough skill set and talent to be an XFL quarterback. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think he's got a reputation for wanting to swing a golf club more so than, watch game film. So that might have been his downfall.
I mean, there were some things. He had a great play action pass. I mean, he was play action with he had a great fake, and all the option stuff that he could do. Really good with that. I mean, he wasn't as consistent as a passer, especially down the field, but when it came to the short yardage stuff, he was an excellent quarterback. But hey, well, anyways, Risen, what I wanted to really was coming on the show for is I just was going to mention the fact that all throughout the year we've wanted to have answers and more determined of what this game's going to look like when Michigan and Ohio State come to finally to that head. And I don't think we have any more answers after this week than we've had. I think going back, I think it looked, we kind of had more of an idea of how that game was going to look. And then this week happened, and it makes us all like, wait a minute. Michigan might not be running the ball down Ohio State's throat this week, and who knows what's going to happen. I mean, I think I have more questions about that game now than I did a couple weeks ago.
This is probably from that standpoint, this is probably the most interesting Ohio State-Michigan matchup since 2006, because since then, either Ohio State's been a lot better and blew out Michigan, or they were a lot better, but Michigan gave them a game like 2013, let's say, a game that wasn't anticipated, or there were certain times like in 2018, like I remember producing a series with looking at all the common opponents. And even though Ohio State and Michigan had the same record, Michigan played much better going into the 2018 game. They were much more dominant against the same opponents. So, and then last year, if anybody was paying attention, they could have recognized that Michigan was playing extremely well. Although when you're that much of a doormat in a series, then people were still just expecting Ohio State just to jump up and take care of business. But this is two teams that are equal. Obviously they have different strengths and weaknesses, but they're generally equal. And we're trying to figure out whose advantages or disadvantages are going to come more into play. And then we've got this injury factor in both running back rooms and elsewhere for both teams, and how that's going to factor into it.
That's something that caught me because, they talked a lot about the Michigan, like in the Michigan game, they talked about the injuries that Michigan sustained. They didn't talk much about the guys that we are missing on defense. And they didn't talk about Eric All at all. Michigan lost Eric All, and he could have been one of the best tight ends in college football. Yeah. And here we have him out. He's been out for the season. They have a lot. That's about 4 starters that are like off the offense right there.
Yeah, well, the third stringer that played today, I don't remember watching him play much, but he was good.
Yeah,
Loveland?
Loveland. Yeah, he was. He's been in a little bit throughout this. They've had him in a few times, and he's looked good every time he's been in. So I'm hoping that he can. He's a freshman and he's got some promise to him. I can imagine him in a few years if he keeps playing the way he is. I mean, he looks like he could be a nice weapon. So I hope. Do you know anything on how Donovan Edwards is doing?
No.
So there's no injury update on him, whether he'll make it for the Ohio State game.
And when it comes to injury updates, nobody has any injury updates. If they tell you that they do, then the only exception to that are true injury updates are people that know people that are in the locker room or in, there's some kind of trainer or assistant that leaks out information, tells certain people, and then that gets out. Otherwise, not even the Ohio State and Michigan writers that we have on here on a regular basis. They have, they've seen these things play out before, so they can make logical guesses at things, but the coaches don't let anybody know anything. They don't want anyone knowing. And college football does not mandate that anyone gets any type of injury report.
Yeah.
Like the NFL.
No. Yeah. Well, and I think it's definitely a tactical thing to not let the other team know what they have to prepare for, for sure. Any advantage you can get at this level, for sure.
Okay. I guess we've got our official word here from Mike. Mike Fort's telling us Donovan Edwards will be fine for the game.
I hope Mike's right. He's been doing a few things though so far, so I'm
not making fun of Mike. I'm just saying that's what he said. I'm not ready to go out there and make declarations on who's fine and who's not. The only comment I've made about Blake Corum was I don't think it's a good indicator when he leaves the game, he comes out at halftime for the second half, he warms up, he goes in a close game, he goes in for a couple plays, carries the ball once, and then they take him out and we never see him again.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, that could mean it, it could be, it's not a good indicator that he's going to be healed in a week.
Yeah.
Usually when you have an injury that you can, be good for the next game, it's usually something you could probably play that game, I mean, people don't heal instantly, but hey, one thing I wanted to throw at you, last thing, and I'll let you go. How close, are we to complete chaos for the, for the college playoff committee?
Chaos. All right. Well, let's say everything goes as scheduled, which it won't, but there's going to be an Ohio State-Michigan winner, and that team's going to win the Big Ten championship game. And Georgia's going to beat LSU. Clemson's going to beat North Carolina and not trip up against South Carolina next week. And TCU is going to finish undefeated, and USC is going to beat Notre Dame next week, and they're going to win the Pac-12 championship game. Now, that's complete chalk right there.
Yeah.
So TCU's got a spot. They're undefeated.
Yeah.
Georgia's got a spot. They're undefeated. The Ohio State-Michigan winner's got a spot. They're undefeated. And then the committee would have to decide between the Clemson one-loss ACC champion or a USC one-loss Pac-12 champion. That's the cleanest. Well, the cleanest would be that one of those two lose, USC or Clemson.
And it's just to decide. Yeah.
And it's just the four. That's your cleanest playoff.
Cleanest thing is probably maybe like the Pac-12 dropping a game and TCU go in. Just the top four that we have right now. Well, no, because Michigan's gonna or Ohio State, they're gonna play, so they're gonna drop a game. So so it's not gonna be too clean even with that.
The biggest chaos is LSU beats Georgia and Clemson and USC. I guess you don't want chaos in those two conferences because you want them to create chaos in the playoff selection. So you want them to win out. TCU wins out, so they're a factor. They're there. And then, I don't know how this would be evaluated. Let's say Ohio State beats Michigan, but they lose to Iowa in the Big Ten.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. If that's something like that, whatever team wins out of the big in the game, they go and lose. If I think this would be the worst chaos. The Big Ten ends up, the East, the winner of Michigan or Ohio State. It's a close game, and the winner out of those two gets beat by like 2 touchdowns. In the championship game by whoever is in the West that they're playing. They get beat by 2 touchdowns by whoever they're playing, and then both LSU and Georgia drop a game. Georgia loses to Georgia Tech in that rivalry game, and LSU uses to Mississippi, and then LSU beats Georgia. That's complete combat.
Well, yeah,
that would be pandemonium.
Yeah, we've got a lot of there are going to be more upsets. We've got 2 more weekends. We've got USC playing Notre Dame and a Pac-12 championship game. We've got TCU playing Iowa State. They should be fine there, but a Pac-12 or a Big 12 championship game. We've got an Ohio State-Michigan game. We've got them playing a decent opponent in the Big Ten championship game. I don't know. That could be. We've seen near upsets in the past in those kind of matchups where a great team plays an 8-4 team, or Ohio State or Michigan's going to win that game, like Michigan won it last year. Georgia, I think they're fine up until the SEC championship game. But yeah, LSU, they almost lost to Arkansas last week. They could lose to Texas A&M.
And that Tennessee win doesn't look as good now.
The Tennessee win
for LSU?
Oh, for Georgia, you mean?
Oh, for Georgia. Yeah. Wait, I was thinking LSU played Tennessee and won.
Yeah. Georgia's number 1. They lost.
They're
not missing the playoff unless they lose the SEC championship game by 35 points.
Yeah. Well, hey, you guys should go. You gotta catch this last quarter of this Utah and
17
Oregon game.
Yeah, nobody else is calling me, so that's fine. Appreciate you being here.
All right, Mark, you have a good night, man.
Thanks, Ben. We have left the link in the chat if anybody wants to join. We'll give Michael another shot here. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Okay, hey, I gotta go. Bye.
Oh.
Hey, Mark, can you hear me?
Yeah. No, I believe we've got the same
All right,
issue.
sorry about that. All right, I'm gonna try on I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just my phone. I'm on my laptop. I'm gonna try my.
All right. Anything else, folks? Or are we at the end of the line? This would be one of our shortest shows of all time here, even though we've got a nice crowd here. An hour and 45 minutes. Look at this. I might be able to get off here and watch the last 10 minutes of the game. We can do that. Okay. DeAndre, I've posted this a number of times. We'll post it again. And I would ask everybody out there that likes and enjoys what we do here at the Voice of College Football, keep this in mind. Please, I posted the link, DeAndre. Please tell people that we're here. So in addition to you enjoying what we do here at the Voice of College Football, and we always appreciate your support in any way that you give it to us, like the videos, subscribe, and do all those good things. Also, keep in mind that we've got all these team channels. So in particular, folks, listen up. Even if you could care less about Penn State or Texas A&M or West Virginia or Georgia, those four in particular, please subscribe to those channels. Georgia, Penn State, West Virginia, especially West Virginia, since we do a live show every week. West Virginia, Georgia, Penn State, Texas A&M. Please subscribe to those channels. Even if you hate those teams and it disgusts you to support those channels, you can always unsubscribe when we get past 1,000. Mark, thank you for that. We appreciate that, Mark. Thank you for subscribing to the Penn State channel. We need like another 400, 450 subs, something like that. All right, let's get to DeAndre. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Mark? How you doing today?
I am doing just fine.
Okay.
What you got for us?
Okay, the super chat that I sent you earlier, you said was BU and IU.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
saw that. I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah, that was Baylor and Illinois. I was talking about the play calling at the end of the game for both of the teams. Because I felt like they shouldn't have tried to run the clock out. I think both of them ran the ball straight out the middle 3 times.
Yes.
So I felt like their coaches beat themselves.
Yeah, there was way too much. I don't know about the Baylor game because I was watching both games at the same time, and I didn't see the whole time management with Baylor, but with Illinois I did. And again, that's what you do when there's like 90 seconds left in the game. Run the ball 3 times, make them use all their timeouts, kick it away, give them like 40 seconds to try to drive the field to kick the field goal. I get that. But there's 3.5 minutes left in the game.
Right.
And there's a wind that's been blowing in your face for 2 quarters, and your punter has shown that he's not going to kick it that far. It just made no sense. And they've got a really good field goal kicker, Michigan. It just you got to keep playing at that point.
Right. My next point was too on that. Michigan. And I know everybody's been hitting Clemson and how bad DJ sometimes looks. But I don't think Michigan quarterback look any better. I haven't really seen Michigan play that much this year, live play. I'll just watch Illinois' game, and he doesn't look that much better than DJ.
Yeah, I really can't totally disagree with you. I think he's better than DJ, but yeah, I really can't disagree with you that much. He's completed passes at a much higher rate. I do know that up until the last couple of weeks.
Right.
He was leading the nation in completion percentage. Now, he wasn't exactly splitting defenses downfield. They weren't necessarily asking him to throw passes like CJ Stroud was in the Rose Bowl last year, but he was leading the nation in completion percentage. But the last 3 weeks, he's been fairly lousy.
Yeah, and also we already discussed this. Their schedule wasn't really that hard, so how much did you have to rely on him to throw the ball down the field?
Let's think about who they played. So I'm going to agree and disagree on 2 points. One would be, yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of they don't need him because their ground game has been so dominant that they haven't needed him to make those kind of throws or lead a 4th quarter drive or anything like that. On the other hand, even though their schedule's not that tough, I would say that they've played a handful, 3 or 4 pretty good defenses. Well, they played one really good defense, Iowa. They played a good defense today in Illinois.
Right.
Maryland's an okay defense, and Penn State's a good defense. I'll give you those 4, and then everybody else is pretty bad. Rutgers actually has a decent defense.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. So where I'm about to head next.
Okay, where are we going?
To the rankings.
Yeah, the
I
rankings.
know you cannot tell me what somebody else is thinking.
Well,
however,
I know it's my job to try to tell you. I should do better at these, and I should actually not slough off these kind of questions, because I'm sitting here to play the game and try to tell you. So I'll do my best.
But this goes back to what we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. How are you going to justify Tennessee? They lost really big to South Carolina, who was 6-4 at the time.
Yeah.
We all agree South Carolina hasn't played that good this year until last night.
Yep.
So how are you going to justify LSU and Alabama being above Tennessee, and Tennessee beat both of those teams? They got the same records.
I said that same exact thing a few minutes ago. That's why rankings become more and more complicated and difficult. And I know that from trying to do them every week and having people take shots at me that don't go through the entire process. They just look at like one team. That exactly how in the world, now that these 3 teams all have the same record and Tennessee beat Alabama and they blasted LSU.
Right, at LSU.
But watching that game tonight, you would think, okay, Tennessee needs to be punished for that game. But you can only punish them so far if you're going to be consistent with head-to-head. And I think you should be as consistent with head-to-head results as you possibly can be. So let's say, what should Georgia be 1? Let's see, Georgia's 1, and let's say Ohio State's still 2, and Michigan's 3, and TCU's 4, and then after that Tennessee was 5. Well, if you bump everybody up and you go, then you can't bump. I guess you got to leapfrog Clemson and say, you know what? We're going to take Clemson. We're going to leapfrog them over those 3.
Well, Southern Cal, remember last
USC and Clemson.
Cal.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying. It's like it doesn't make any sense because these teams got 2 losses. I'm not saying it because I'm a Clemson fan, and I understand Alabama and Clemson played today. Alabama probably is. I'm not gonna say smoke Clemson, but they'll probably win the game, and so probably with LSU. However, the record says Clemson and Southern Cal are better. I mean, Southern Cal and Tennessee both have issues on defense, and Clemson has issues on offense. So I just don't understand how these rankings supposed to make sense. Not even going at your rankings. I'm talking about how is the committee going to justify this? Because Michigan, there's going to be a loss between Michigan and Ohio State. So that means that if Southern Cal and Clemson leapfrogs those other 3 teams, who are you going to put in there? And Southern Cal has a really hard two last games. Even Clemson, the way South Carolina looked today, they're going to have a hard game against South Carolina next week.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah. And then you just never know with Carolina.
It's all up to interpretation. Not all of it. Obviously, teams win and lose games, but look at even Ohio State and Michigan. The committee, if that's a close game, the committee could say, Michigan lost, they're done. They didn't win a conference, they're done, because we got too many conference champions to deal with that have a better record or the same record. So Michigan's done. Or they could say, well, Michigan just played the team that's the number 2 team in the country, and they played them down to the wire. So that only justifies that they're that good. So we're barely going to drop them. They've done that before. They did that with Alabama and Georgia last year.
Right.
And Georgia lost by 17 points.
Right. So, but last year, I think that was kind of unique, guys. I think everybody, I think there was a lot of teams with like 2 or 3 losses, and it was hard to get somebody in there because they had to put Cincy in there. Yeah, but I just was just wondering because I think that's been my whole point to you. I want to see chaos because I was hoping that Michigan and Illinois was going to get in there.
Okay.
I have no doubt that my Clemson Tigers probably won't win a national championship this year because
all right, DeAndre, tell me this. You
up?
want chaos. Tell me what that looks like, and I'm going to give you anything except for you can't go to like Georgia's going to lose to Georgia Tech.
No.
Don't go quite that far.
No.
What's your chaos?
I'm talking about TCU losing, Southern Cal losing, and Michigan losing to Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think that caused the utmost chaos in the thing. And I know that put my Clemson Tigers in a good position, but
yeah,
Southern Cal losing one of the last 2 games that will cause chaos. And
well, then they're going to be done. That's actually going to create less chaos.
Okay.
You follow me?
Right.
Because if they lose, they're done. If they win, then they're in the discussion.
Right. Yeah.
So your chaos is Georgia wins out. They're the SEC champ.
Right.
Clemson wins the ACC with 1 loss.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State wins the Big Ten. They're in. They're undefeated. But TCU's undefeated. And then USC wins out. So basically, you've got 5 teams. So the committee has to decide between a 1-loss USC, a 1-loss Clemson that won their conferences, and a 1-loss Michigan.
I think if Michigan lose, I think Michigan's done. The reason why I say that because their schedule was so weak. I mean, I know their first 4 games were just so terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I know UConn is playing pretty well. Right now, I know they lost the Army today, but I mean, you still can't justify how bad your schedule was, and everybody know that you played UCLA to get out of that game. So I think that's what hurt Michigan. So Michigan would have to win versus Ohio State. And I think if you're a conference champion, I think you should, in these tiebreakers, I think that should be one of the tiebreakers. But like I said, somebody's going to have to lose. And what happens if LSU beats Georgia? What kind of mess would that be?
If LSU beats Georgia, they're both going to be in.
But again, I don't see how you justify it. I mean, I guess could it beat Alabama and Georgia?
So give me your scenario with LSU beating Georgia. Who else wins?
Southern Cal, Clemson, Ohio State, and TCU. How would you take LSU over those 4?
I think they would take LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, and TCU.
Yeah, but Georgia doesn't have one. I mean, I know that happened with Alabama the year they beat Clemson in the first round, but I mean, I don't see how you would justify that, especially with a team with 2 losses. I would think neither SEC team would get in, which we all know that ain't gonna happen. But but I mean, I would think that would make more sense because Tennessee just beat them 23 points at home, and Clemson beat Florida State. So and Florida State, if they beat Florida next week, oh my God! I mean, what does that say about Florida State?
Yeah.
I mean, Florida. I don't know what's wrong with Florida. I mean, I know that guy's just getting there, but you can't tell me you don't have more talent than Vandy. And lose a game like that. 31-24. How does Vandy score 31 points on Florida?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the game, but
well, everybody's been scoring on Florida this year except for South Carolina last week.
I see, that's what I'm saying. It's baffling this year to try to figure out. I'm not saying that I want to see it happen, but what happened to Clemson get hot and beat everybody? What does Notre Dame come back and say? I mean, I know they're 9-3, but I mean, this year it's just like, wow, like how do you figure it out? I mean, Georgia just struggled with Kentucky and Kent State and Missouri. Three teams that are really not that good this year. So I just have a hard time figuring out who's good and who's not. Because who does TCU got next week?
Iowa State.
And Iowa State got a defense that can give you some issues. I mean, that's just. I mean, you could technically lose that game. I don't know where they're playing at, but
Sure, they could. TCU is not beating anybody in the. I know somebody's going to jump on this from a technicality standpoint. Basically, TCU is not beating anybody in the conference by more than one score. Every game's one score. Every game's been close against everybody, even West Virginia, who's no good. That game was 34-31 with a few seconds left of the game.
Yeah, I remember that one. Man, what about Oklahoma all of a sudden just blasting Oklahoma State? I mean, I don't get Oklahoma State this year.
Yeah, I thought that they might be the best team in the Big 12 for the first 4, 5, 6 weeks. And then after they lost to TCU, which was a great game, if you would take about the TCU Oklahoma State game in the third quarter when Oklahoma State was up by 17 points, at that point I thought this is the best team in the Big 12. And then after that, they just totally spun out of control and collapsed and lost that 48-0 game to Kansas State. And then they lost to just pretty much everybody except for they lost to Kansas by 3 scores. And then they kind of righted the ship. What the committee did with the rankings last week concerning Oklahoma State, you talk about not making any sense. Oklahoma State had looked like trash for 3 consecutive weeks and was 7-3, and then they win a game against Iowa State and they jump into the rankings. Anyway, then they get hammered tonight.
Yeah. I see my next issue is the ACC schools, because how do you rank them with State and Syracuse losing their quarterbacks?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, because are those wins still valuable for Clemson?
Sure.
State was number 10 in the nation.
Sure they are. Clemson has a long list of quality wins, but they're not great wins, but they're decent wins. Wake, NC State, Florida State, Louisville, all those are quality wins. I consider them quality wins. They're not great, but they're good teams. They're top 25 to 40 teams. I think Florida State's probably the second best team in the conference.
Right. Yeah, Florida State just had, I don't know what to do so long. I mean, I just, today, like Carolina, I'm like, how do you lose to Georgia Tech playing 3 quarterbacks? I just couldn't understand that loss for Carolina. I know Downs got hurt, but I'm like, how do you lose to Georgia Tech? And I know Georgia Tech is not going to beat Georgia next week, but if that guy pulls that upset next week versus Georgia, you go ahead and give him the job. We all know what's going to happen, but he lost Sims.
Yeah.
Again, not the Heisman. That's more even confusing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's a tough call to make, and maybe I'll produce a video on that. But I know Hooker's dropped off because of Tennessee, but still, I'll throw him in there. Hendon Hooker, Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud, Blake Corum, Max or Duggan. Drake May, although he took a hit obviously tonight as well. Yeah, it's a wide open Heisman race. And now we got Utah just picked off a pass against Oregon, and there's 4.5 minutes left, and they're driving down the field, and we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, man, that's amazing, man. You gotta love this type of college football, Mark. I really enjoyed this year. I know, like I said, my team may not win the national championship, and Georgia look like they might repeat, but this has been a great year. And I kind of think that Ohio State's going to beat Michigan, but we really don't know because Michigan, I know the running back is hurt, but it seems like Michigan is unfortunately is gonna might give Ohio State a game and make chaos, but
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Ohio State in that category. I ain't gonna hold you up no more, Mark. I just had to ask you about that LSU, Alabama, Tennessee situation because I just I know you don't have no control over it, but I just think that Clemson and Southern Cal should be
Sure.
5 and 6
I
on the
agree with you.
outside looking.
All right, DeAndre,
Yeah.
we appreciate you checking in. You're kind
All
of
right.
breaking up, so we'll let you go. But thank you so much for your support, man, as always.
All right. Hey, sometimes the reason why I had to ask for the link because when you put it up top, it already be
Yeah, I know it's impossible to find at that point. I need to leave it in the description section of the video, but I always forget.
Oh, okay. All right, Mark. Take care, man.
Thanks, DeAndre. Appreciate it.
All right.
There's our guy, BGPO Football Funk. Black and gold, purple and orange. There you go. Clemson, Pittsburgh Steelers fan. How about that? All right. Well, we got Oregon and we've got Utah. And just after Clark Phillips made a pick for Utah, Cam Rising threw one away and Bennett Williams stepped in front for a really tremendous interception. Both corners, or their safeties, actually, one of safety, Bennett Williams anyway, both defensive backs made exceptional plays on the ball for those interceptions. So now Oregon's got a shot to run out the clock and win the game here and secure their spot in the Pac-12 championship game. And again, unless I'm missing something, I believe even with a loss against Oregon State in the Civil War next week, this will wrap it up for Oregon because, of course, they have wins over UCLA and Utah head-to-head. So that breaks the tie against the two lost teams if they would lose next week. So this is great stuff. For this week in particular, it's going to be extremely difficult to produce too much content, but we're going to be here all the time. And, of course, Thanksgiving kind of condenses the week, and we get our first rivalry game on Thanksgiving night with the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, on into the weekend with a bunch of key games on Friday and then on into Saturday. But we're going to be here cranking out the content. So please join us on this channel, the main channel, and all the channels. And we're going to produce as much content as possible. If you have any requests, if you want, a Clemson, South Carolina breakdown or whatever you want, I'm going to get to as many previews and do as much as I possibly can this week to do it justice, rivalry week. So please, if you've got a recommendation or request, just send it my way at MarkRogersTV at Gmail or leave it in the comment section of any of the videos. Please support us as best you can. If you love what we do here at the Voice of College Football, even if you disagree with me, if you enjoy what we do, please support the videos in any way that you possibly can. Get them out there in social media, and we will continue to make this work here at the Voice of College Football. Link for the Pac-12 show. We will deliver that. Yes, you can keep talking college football, and I'm sure Tim, Tony, and Rick are locked in on this Oregon-Utah game. So let me get you the link to the USC channel. Here we go. Yes, they've got a bigger crowd than I do. There we go. Here is the link to the USC post game. I'm dropping it in the chat right now. There it is. Bam. There it is. Please grab the link. It's in the live chat and get on over to the USC post game. And I'm sure they're watching this Oregon-Utah game to the finish. So enjoy that. And Uncle Rico and everyone else, we will see you soon. I'm going to be back with the top 25 that actually makes sense sometime on Sunday. And again, we are going to kill rivalry week. I'm going to do as much as I possibly can. I'm probably not going to sleep this week because we want to produce as much college football content for you as possible, because this is the week. Oregon, Oregon State, Florida, Florida State, USC, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, on and on and on and on and on. Okay, enjoy the USC show. Get on over there, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Like the channel, Bilal, Doc, Nerf, all you guys. Thank you so much for all your help. Yes, Uncle Rico, nothing does make sense, but that makes it more fun. So you're probably thinking, Uncle Rico, like me, just so your team doesn't get affected by it, but then you want to see all the other chaos ensue. There we go. All right. We'll be back on Friday, top 25 that actually makes sense. And I'm going to produce as many videos on as many angles, as many live streams, and kill it this week for Rivalry Week right here. And we'll enjoy it together. Thanks, David. Appreciate it. We'll see you.